Parshas Acharei Mos. Vaydaber Hashem el Moshe Acharei Mos Shnei bnei Aaron bekarvasam lifnei Hashem vayamusu. And based on Chasidus, especially the Likutei Halachos, what message can we find here? And specifically, bekarvasam lifnei Hashem vayamusu. And the very next parsha here in Acharei Mos, contiguous to this opening, is the parsha of Avodas Yom Kippur. What connection can we possibly find between the two? Let's raise a few questions about Yom Kippur. First of all, let's keep in mind that the Kohen Gadol on Yom Kippurim, as we'll learn in this parsha, wears different begadim. His big day kahuna are constantly shifting. 5 times he changes from big day lavan that are totally white linen to big day zav that have gold on them. And they're made up of 8 begadim. Big day lavan are only 4. What is the metaphor and the symbolism of this constant change back and forth from one set of begadim to the other? Second question, what we find in the Avodas Yom Kippurim is a difference between Erev Yom Kippur and Yom Kippur itself. Whereas Yom Kippur is v'nisam es nafshel seichem, it's a day dedicated purely to abstain from food and drink. On Erev Yom Kippur, on the contrary, there becomes a mitzvah of food and drink. What's the symbolism here? And finally, as we open up this parsha, we wonder why bikarvasam lifnei Hashem, they are climbing up to be closer to Hashem, and then vayamusu, and nadav avihu, the bnei Aaron, are rejected. In order to understand this al pi Chassidus, we have to understand a few things, and they all revolve around shamayim va'aretz, the relationship between the two. Down on earth, admas kodesh is the goal. It means to take the very offer of the ground and bring down the divinity into the offer. And that's called a koach hamoshech, the nefesh of a person. The tzaddik yesod olam, yesod olam means the ground, is capable of being moshech, of taking down from the higher worlds Hashem, divinity, infinity, into this world. On the other side of the equation, there's a koach hamachriach. Machriach means it pulls upwards, and it creates a certain tension. And this koach, which is called the koach hamachriach, is basically man's physicality, his desire for pleasure, anything that's material, his preoccupation with finances, with materialism. All these things try to pull man up from the ground. Instead of man bringing God and divinity down and utilizing his koach hamoshech, there's going to be a tension here between those forces that try to bring upwards, and that's called machriach, and the nefesh ha'adam, which is trying to be a koach hamoshech. That's the battlefield. And the battle has to be won. But what does it mean to win the battle? One might think that in this context, we are meant to go all the way up, all the way to the top, climb to the highest levels of infinity, and leave this world behind. But that's not so. That was the, perhaps, sin, if we call it, of nadav avihu, bekarvasam el Hashem. They wanted to rise above this battle and this confrontation between the koach hamoshech of the nefesh and the koach hamachriach of the guf, and leave the guf behind. No, that's not acceptable. On the other polar extreme, if the koach hamachriach is too powerful and it doesn't allow man to bring down all of the entire universe, all of his confrontations with materialism down to this world, to create a makom kadosh, as HaKadosh Baruch Hu says to Moshe Rabbeinu, that he's standing on admas kodesh. The Adam itself has to be transformed into Kedusha. And if the Koach HaMachriach is too powerful, man becomes preoccupied with materialism, with a finite nature of physicality, and he's lost the battle. So what is the winning number here, and how does man win the battle? The answer is that we need lechavein yachad shnei kochot. We need a certain incredible knowledge to balance between these two forces. And in the language of the Likutei Halachos, the mezeg hatzarich. Mezeg means the right integration or balance between these two forces. We cannot let the koach hamachriach carry me up and prevent me from taking kedusha, sanctity, divinity down. So we need a winning koach hamoshech that pulls that divinity down to the earth to sanctify the earth. As we say, nafshi ke'ofar lakoltia. We want ofar. We want to be like the ofar, where we can establish and plant our seeds, Chasidic Yesod Olam, as we mentioned earlier. And the ofar Mishkan is sanctified because the Mishkan is the Shekhinah coming down to this world. We have now defeated the Koach HaMachriach that's trying to set up barriers and not allowing us to bring everything down to this fundamental Yesod. Avram Avinu declares, Anochi Ofar v'Efer. We talk about the Efer and the Ofar of Eretz Yisrael. And David HaMelech says, Ki rotzo avanechas avaneo v'safara yechonono. That offer of Eretz Yisrael has been sanctified by bringing everything down from the higher realms into this basic realm of man on earth, the offer. So now we're in a situation where we have these two powerful forces, one pulling up and one pulling down. The force pulling down, which reflects the nefesh, it's a manifestation of man's spirituality and his desire to get close to Hashem, is going to be the winner. But we're not going to defeat the Koach HaMachriach. As we saw before, we're going to try to find the proper balance between the two. So we have the Koach HaMachriach that's still very much alive. And that's symbolized by the Avodah of the Kohen Gadol on Yom Kippurim. He is not climbing up to the higher worlds. He's bringing down the higher worlds to this world. And that is reflected in his Big Day Zahav. The Big Day Zahav are made of gold. What could be more materialistic than gold? But he constantly switches back from Big Day Lavan, the whiteness which represents pure divinity and spirituality, to Big Day Zahav, and back and forth, because that's exactly what man is meant to do, to go back and forth, to make sure that his goal is always the Big Day Lavan, the Koach HaMoshech, but at the same time, not to subjugate and nullify the Koach HaMachriach. And that's why Yom Kippurim is really made up of two parts. One is Yom Kippurim itself, in which we are like the Malachi Asharis, but that would not be sufficient. We need the Erev Yom Kippurim, the mitzvah of Achila, which brings us back down to this earth. Yiratzon epi his will, that we successfully balance between these two kochos that are battling within us. And we always give the upper hand, in Mirtz Hashem, to the Koach HaMoshech. And through that Mashiach, we will take and reach out to the gold, to the physicality, to the Achila, and uplift it by bringing the Shekhinah down to this world. And if we do so, then surely we'll achieve tshuva and kapara, which is the essence of Yom Kippurim. Kein Yiratzon. Amen. Thank you. And we should always be matzliach in this chapter.